Hi, and welcome to the Pride Road Architects podcast. I'm Lisa Rains, and each episode I'll talk to people who interest me in the world of architecture and business. So join me and fellow lions and lionesses as we explore architecture in the den. So hi everyone and welcome to Architecture in the Den. It's been a while since I've done this. It's been nearly 6 months, I think. And I'm delighted that Michele Hottel has joined us all the way from California for our inaugural 2022 episode. So hi Michele, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Lisa. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. We were just saying that it's 5 p.m. UK time. And what time is it with you?
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. So it's still pretty good. It's still, yeah, that's better than like what Lisa, or not Lisa, Sarah was doing them at like 2 a.m. or something, her time at some point.
I mean, and you were saying that you were up early, or you've been up early to do clubhouses?
Clubhouse, yes. So I was on a Clubhouse this morning. It's the Entre Architect Context and Clarity. So it's 9 a.m. Eastern time. It's 6 a.m.
That's in New York, isn't it? Eastern time.
Yes. Pacific time, which is California, all the West Coast, and Arizona, but only during certain parts of the year. And then Arizona they don't observe daylight savings, so then they're an hour off from us.
And all these things you have to kind of learn, it's something that's become part of our understanding in the past 2 years during lockdown, especially when we started doing international podcasts and Clubhouse, and also we were part of, you joined us on Shero's.
Yes.
Yeah, it was last year. Gosh.
Yes, last year in May.
Yeah, that was that with Sarah Carlotta. That was super fun, trying to coordinate people from all over the world. I think because we have daylight saving hours, British summertime, and some of the language got confused, and we got confused about timings.
No, I know there were a lot of time zones to keep track of on there. And then I can remember, like, at the beginning of COVID, I was missing things all the time because it wasn't expressed that it was like Eastern time. And so everybody was like 3 hours off, and,
I mean, I remember kind of like those sort of images of patriarchal offices where you have the clocks, like in Mad Men or something, and you've got the clocks on the wall with the different time zones, and you're like, that's just pretentious.
I know, and now it's like, I know, actually, I mean, it's kind of good because on our phones, right, we can keep track of that, but, of course, we're never looking at all of the time zones, we're only looking at our own, but yeah.
Oh yeah, so I'm coming to the end of my day, so I just had to nip in and turn off my bulgur wheat.
Your what? Your what was that?
Bulgur wheat.
Oh, bulgur wheat. Okay, yes.
I've kind of got some bulgur wheat and vermicelli mix on the stove. I don't know how it's going to work. Just a bit of weekday experimentation for tea.
One of them is probably going to cook faster than the other one.
Yeah. Well, our house is it's a bit crazy at the moment because we're hosting a Ukrainian family.
Oh, you are? Oh, how wonderful. Oh
yeah.
My gosh, Lisa.
So it makes life really interesting. So we've split the week in terms of cooking. So because there's 4 of them and a variety of numbers of us. And so we don't overcook, because that was a serious issue. and which led to loads of food waste and things like that. We've like split the week, so kind of we do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they cook kind of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But sometimes there's a bit of a crossover, so I don't know whether I'm like trying to hover around the kitchen and go, I'm cooking, because we have a language issue as well. So
yeah. Lisa, that's like amazing. That's so wonderful. I know that we our church took in some people from Haiti.
really,
And so yes, and because we have a community center, and when the community center was designed, we have an interfaith shelter, which is transitional housing. So, and they go from church to church. And one of the things that they had at the church was they said that they wanted to have, showers so that we could host the interfaith shelter, because we weren't able to host that before because we didn't have the showers. So showers were part of it. And then kind of the classrooms become, the bedrooms. And then there's room for and then we have a bigger kitchen. They put in a commercial kitchen so that they would be able to host bigger gatherings with food and everything. So I mean, I think that's really important. And now trying to get them into more permanent housing.
Yeah, well, we're just a stopgap, so we've offered to host for 6 months, but they've got a right to remain in the UK for 3 years. So we're kind of,
okay.
Yeah, the government should provide accommodation after our 6 months, but it'll be a battle of red tape, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, as always.
But as is the life of architecture as well.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
So who's in your household at the moment?
Oh my gosh, Lisa.
There's a question to put you on the spot.
I mean, actually, one of my friends was kind of laughing, saying that I should be writing a dramedy or something, because I have we added on. So I have my ex-husband that lives in the thing because he had a medical issue, and then I have all 3 of my adult kids are here now, because my daughter was going to go to grad school, which she is in grad school, but they went to it was at the beginning of the year, and they said like, oh, you know what, we're not going to be in person, we're going to go to, we're going to be virtually. But she had already given up her apartment, so she'd been gone for 2 years with her own apartment, gave up the apartment, and then they decided to go virtual for her master's program. And so
where's that? Which school's that?
Pardon me?
Which school? Grad school?
Oh, a grad school in LA. So we're in San Diego.
Wow.
And so so she moved back into the house to do that. And then they went into and then they were going to be like 2 days a week. And so she goes up, she commutes like from, her boyfriend's house, like halfway she commutes in, because, housing in LA is so ridiculously expensive. I mean, it's just crazy expensive, And so she's doing that. And then they actually, now there's more cases of COVID. So they're like, okay, now we're not going to have you in person, but we are going to have you in person for these days. So it's just totally crazy. And then my brother recently moved in with me. And so so we have a lot of people living here right now. And yeah.
Do you think this is an architecture thing? Just kind of like,
I don't know, Lisa, right? I don't know. Or maybe it's just us. Maybe it's us. Right? I don't know. Maybe it's just us. And so he's going to build an ADU in the back. Yeah. So it's like
what?
An ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit. So everybody in the state of California that has a single family home can now have an accessory dwelling unit and it can either be attached to their house, which in that case, it's 50% of the size of the house, or if it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit, then it can be 1,000 square feet. Yes.
Wow.
And then you can have up to 1,200 square feet of an
Wow.
accessory dwelling unit. Mine is going to be 200 square feet.
Wow.
A
So
little bit
that's
bigger than
really interesting, because we have rules. Well, we don't have rules like that over here, but our councils are very careful to stop kind of overdevelopment on properties. I suppose our curtilages are probably smaller. And
Well, we have a
so
7,000 square foot lot.
yeah.
So we have a 7,000 square foot lot, and then which probably in England is large, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
7,000 square feet large.
like
Yeah.
700 square meters. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So for us, you know, once you start putting a second dwelling on a property, you start adding to, you know, congestion on the roads and parking issues. I mean, if you just look out my window, oh, I'll show you out my window. I mean, this isn't going to translate very well to an audio podcast, but you can see I live in a semi-detached house.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you can see over
Yeah.
the road, kind of like typical semi-detached houses.
Yeah.
If you tried to put an extra dwelling in the back of there, the roads would be very congested.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, you can see, like, we have 5-foot side yards here. If you look at, we have 5-foot side yards here. And then also, I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and the area that I grew up in, it's less than 1 square mile, but it's one of the densest suburbs in Pittsburgh. And it was designed, you know, it was designed by urban designers and planners in the late 1800s. And it, you know, the lots are smaller and a lot of single family homes, but then on the corners, they would do
Apartments.
Yeah, and then maybe duplexes scattered throughout the thing. So it's really, it's mixed, and it's more of like a European model. So it's on, you know, the major transportation corridors, and, you know, the streetcar trolley was running through there. So
So
much more different than kind of California style planning.
So do you work from home? Do you have an office at home?
Yes, I do. And yes, so one of the things I did with the addition was I added a home office.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of nice. So the addition was done about 2 years ago. So we were kind of, we had started it right before COVID, and then we finished it up during COVID, after the shutdown. Yeah.
So so what sort of work do you do in your practice?
I primarily do custom residential. So this was right up my, this was right up my alley. My plans do not, I think it was my own plans might have been the messiest set that I've ever done, but I knew
they always are. How many versions of your own plans did you do though?
Well, it was kind of a really fast thing, right? Because we basically had to add on in order to accommodate someone in a wheelchair. So I mean, that was kind of the main reason why we added on. So a lot of it just had to be, and because of the way, you know, I kind of wanted to keep the existing front of the house, and we really couldn't add on in the front. We didn't want to obviously add on the second floor because that would defeat the purpose. So it is just in the back and then kind of goes out. And it's more modern than the rest of the house, the 50s house. So the back addition is a little bit more modern on the interior, but just kind of on the exterior, it's just kind of like
that sounds like here. We moved in here that it's an extended 1930s semi, which sort of is very typical house type in the suburbs here. And when we I moved in about 8 years ago, but I've kind of been concentrating on growing the business rather than like doing anything to the house.
Of
I
course.
must have redesigned the house about 5 times, but it wasn't until we decided to take on the Ukrainian family that we actually put in that extra shower room. By which time my specifications had all changed because you couldn't get hold of anything. So it's like we have all these plans, but it's necessity that actually forces us to do stuff.
I know exactly. And now my brother is here, so he's helping me with a lot. He is helping me with a lot of stuff. And you know, it's funny though. It's just, you know, with your sibling, you're like thinking, this is kind of what I said, because we are close, right? But we haven't lived together for ages. So you know, you kind of start to wonder like, oh, was I too mean to him as a guy? And my brother is like, my brother's 6'5", right? And I'm like almost, you know, I was 5'8", now we're more like 6'4" and 5'7". But anyway, you know, I mean, he was always as big as me, like from like 2 on, he was always as big as me. And then he got really a lot taller, you know, but when you're younger and you're like arguing, you know, with your sibling or whatever, and then, you know, later on when you're kind of thinking about it in life, you know, it's like, oh, was I too mean to them? And I realized that I really wasn't. There were reasons why. why I argued with him, and there's still the same reason. And then one of my neighbors was walking up the street, and she said like, oh my gosh, you were standing there and you and your brother were into it. And then I was laughing with one of my friends last night, and I said, you know, I don't even think I was arguing with him when I was talking to him about that. I think we were just having a discussion, and it wasn't even an argument, but the neighbor thought we were arguing, and it was really just a discussion about, I think he was going to buy some building supplies, and he was asking, and then of course he's going, my brother's really smart too, which is part of which is part of the problem, right? I mean, it's like, because people are always laughing about how, oh, I mean, therapists always tell me like, when, you know, in marriage counseling, they would always kind of laugh about like, oh, she probably isn't wrong too much of the time, but my brother is like really not wrong most of the time. I mean,
and you just have different ways of going about things.
Yeah, but he has a lot of questions about the construction, and he has like all these detailed things. So it's like you know, it's like we're in a like we're it's like a job site where the contractor is constantly asking you questions about things, but it's your home life, you know. And so he starts work really early in the morning, so he gets home earlier. But you know, for me, my day is not over yet. So it's like, you know, I'm trying to get work done, but then he's got stories about, you know, I mean, not story, he's got questions about the construction, and you know, we're building a shed that wasn't, you know, I wanted it done like 2 years ago because I wanted my sons to do it, but they didn't do it. And then, you know, so we've got like all, so I mean, it'll work out fine, right, Lisa? It'll work out fine.
What's his job occupation?
He's a manager for UPS.
Okay, so logistics.
Yeah.
That's one thing I always ask my clients what they do, because it gives you really good insight as to their personalities.
You know what though, Lisa, that's the first time that anybody has labeled it logistics, because now I mean, even describing it like that, it makes much more sense. It makes much more sense as to the reason why he's always asking me all these questions. But yeah. But, you know, I mean, we as architects, we're more intuitive with things. And so when people start asking us like the details of things, you know, it's like either we want to draw it, you know, or we're trying to explain it to them, but you know, sometimes the explanation isn't, you know, I mean, that's the whole thing with like COVID and what, you know, I mean, I realized, you know, when I was having people draft for me virtually, that I like think I point to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to like point to those things when I'm in an email, or even, you know, when I wasn't doing a lot of it Zoom, I was just going back and forth with the drawings and stuff like that. So I think that it translates better with some people than
Yeah,
other
well,
people.
in our business, well, we just do resident, I've got this franchise business, Pride Road, and our business model's based on sort of a very simplified kind of architectural process, and we start with a concept design workshop, which is hand drawn, and we
Yeah,
draw in front of the clients. So we draw at scale 1 to 50. I don't know what's that in American. Is that 1 to 48 or something? Is it an inch to a foot or something like that? No, that wouldn't work. Would it work? No, that wouldn't work.
because you're in meters, right?
Yeah. So 1 meter
Yeah.
is 50
Which I
meters.
did in Denmark. I did design in that when I was in Denmark in school. But
but it's the right scale for us. So I'm just gonna grab a workshop off my shelf. So if you're listening, onto our website, you'll probably see various examples, prideroad.co.uk or prideroadfranchise.co.uk. So on an A3 piece of paper.
Oh
Yeah, you fit in a house. So that's I'm just showing kind of pictures of a 1930 drawings of a 1930s semi.
Yes.
This is what I do in a workshop. So I'll draw the existing layout, and then I'll start to hand draw options in front of the client.
Yes.
And we do this in real time. So so in like the process of 2 hours, or in person kind of like 3.5 hours, the client starts to see iterations, and it's just a really good way of, no matter what type of client you've got, whether they are incredibly detailed or kinesthetic or different types of learners, it really does pull them down to, right, okay, let's draw this out so you can see the space, and then start going through iterations. So it starts to visualize that intuitive iterative process that we do. It works really well. And then through the workshop we'll then hone down to an option, or not necessarily in that session, but say a month later, and then you've got something that you can start doing a detailed design around.
We'll typically do the as-built drawing, and I still hand draft. So we'll do the as-built drawings. I do the as-built drawings for what they have, and then I do kind of 3 schemes, and then we like pick and choose from those schemes. If they want one element in one scheme, we put that together, and then after schematic design and design development, we get preliminary estimate to see if people's goals, economic
very similar,
are going to match up with what their dreams and aspirations are, and then we go into the construction document.
And do you practice in California? So
yes, I practice in California, and and I was licensed in Texas, but I didn't really pursue any work there. I had gotten my license for a project that was actually for the owner of Toyota. So one of my friends, there was a big residential complex down there in Argyle, Texas, that he had already started on, and then he wanted me to kind of be the architect of record, and then we decided not to work together. But which was kind of like an insurance, it was kind of an insurance disagreement that we had. Like, I wanted to get insurance and he didn't want to get insurance, and exactly. And then I didn't pursue any work there for 5 years, and then I decided that I have an opportunity to work with some people in Arizona, and so I got licensed in Arizona, and so now I'm licensed in California and Arizona.
So what's different from state to state? Is it do you have building codes, don't you?
Well, we actually use the International Building Code, but California also has California specific codes.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the different jurisdictions might be a little bit different, but then we still have California. So we have the International Building Code, and then the way that California, those deviation, typically California's is more stringent than the International Building Code. And then, and we're using, we use the 2019 code. In Arizona, a lot of the different jurisdictions, they're using the building code, but they'll use different versions. They'll use different versions, like they'll use the 2017 code instead of the 2019 code. So it's like all of the different jurisdictions can use different versions of the code.
So yeah, so for us, I mean, we have planning authorities, and we have building inspectors. So planning is generally kind of like the outline design, what it looks like, the appearance of it externally, and also starts to look at, kind of landscaping and change of use and how many cars you're putting in the road, and protecting.
And we have that too. Yeah, we have that too.
And then the building inspectors, that's about your fire structure, thermal efficiency. So our building control is national, but our planning varies from council to council.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And ours is like that too. But then we also have these things that are with California. We have the California Coastal Act.
Okay.
So, and then different jurisdictions have decided, some of them are underneath the California, the Coastal Act, and have to be approved through the Coastal Commission, and then other parts are not. Like Coronado, like the city of Coronado is right there on the water, but they do not go through the Coastal Commission really for that much. They have their own like coastal approval process. And then, but then the city of San Diego, they sometimes go through the Coastal Commission for big things, sometimes they don't. So it's, but then there are like these smaller communities, that have to go through the Coastal Commission, like the whole entire community has to go through the Coastal. Like one area I just learned yesterday, there's an area of Barrio Logan, which is kind of by the piers, and it's a very kind of like workforce, lower income for San Diego area, and everything has to go through the Coastal Commission.
Yeah.
So they'll need more housing. That housing has to go through the Coastal Commission. All the housing, any affordable housing, any housing at all has to go through the Coastal Commission for this one area because of where it's at. So, yeah.
So how do you split between changes of use or numbers of housing to actually the detailed design?
Well, I was a planning commissioner in my.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, I was a planning commissioner in my own city, and so as an architect, I was on the kind of like the planning commission. So if there were, if people wanted a change of zone, change of use, a variance, or any of those kind of things that were planning issues, I would do, I would review those, and that was kind of like a separate committee, right? That's run by citizens. It's run by the city, but the people on the planning commission are citizens of the jurisdiction. So I did that for 12 years, and so we would work on coming up with like the state of California wants a housing element for each person. So we would have kind of like a zoning book. Yeah. Let's say for each city has to have a zoning book that kind of like goes into all of these things and is constantly improving things. And then the state wants, the state of California asks for a housing element. And so you have to, there are different statistics that say that this many people are moving into the area. Yeah, so your city has to accommodate for all of these new people that are coming
you get
in.
You get permission, is it a planning permission? Do you call it a planning permission?
Planning commission, yeah.
Planning commission.
commission. Yes.
Rather than planning permission.
Yes. Yes. And we give permission. Yeah. And we review things for permission. Yeah. But right now, yeah, the state has some things in place so that we can expedite our housing. So one of those things, if you're on these transit, these TOD, transit oriented development corridors, then you can do housing that is you have no limit on density and no limit on height. So you could do a ton of micro units.
Wow.
And you can go as high as you.
Do you not have to get any permissions whatsoever, or
we have to go through the building department, but it doesn't. But it bypasses the planning commission or anything.
I mean, we have things like that, and we call them lawful development, but we still have to get a certificate of lawful development to prove that it was lawful on the date that it was done. Otherwise, it's not deemed to be, or it's not known whether it was legal or not. So
yeah, and so one of the reasons why they were doing this, people were just NIMBYs, not in my backyard, would say, oh, we don't want any development here. We don't want any apartments here. We don't want any of this. Like our area is, it's still 80% single family dwellings, but people were, would still be saying, oh, we don't want anybody, you're trying to take away our single family development. And I'm like, look at these maps, all the yellow, it would be, and so most of the whole, we're 9 square miles, and most of the development is single family residential, and in the city of La Mesa, and they would, a lot of people would be like, oh, don't take away our single family home, right? And in Europe, right, in England, you would never say like single family home, like single family homes are a luxury, right? To be on a piece of property. And there's still people that are outside of California. Like I look at some of my friends, where my parents live in the Midwest, right? They live on 3 acres. Wow. I have friends that do work in New York, upstate New York, or kind of like the Hamptons and things, where people have all this property, and then they have houses, and you see the house and there's nothing else around it. And I always kind of say, like, what, don't you have any setbacks? Here we're like, okay, we have a 5-foot setback, and then we can't, we have a 40-foot rear yard setback, and so the place where you can actually build the home is very, and then your next door neighbor is 10 feet away from you, right? Because you've each got it,
Oh, we have that. It sounds very similar. And I can't believe we've kind of almost run out of time already. So
I know.
I definitely need to come on your podcast and we can continue this conversation.
I know. Well, what questions did you want me to? Because
I think it's fine. I think it's just about the chat. So you run a podcast yourself?
Yes, I've never met a woman architect before. Yes.
So when did you set that up?
I started it 4 years ago, actually.
Oh, very good. Yes. Very good.
Yes. And so my first guest was Bijan Chakrabarti. So a lot of people think that I only interview women architects, but I don't only interview women architects. And then right now we're doing a series. I say we, it's me. But I guess
it's a grand we, yeah.
I have some people that draft for me every once in a while, but it's me. But we're all right. It takes a village. So it's publishing, getting your work published, and it's the digital edition, and so it's kind of based on this panel discussion that we had for through the AIAU. And so we had Anne Fougeron, who's an architect, and here in California and San Francisco, and then and she has beautiful work. And then we had Liza Hausman from Houzz, Houzz, which is kind of, I don't know whether, are you familiar with Houzz?
Yeah,
you have Houzz over there.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So she's VP for marketing, so she kind of did it. And then we had Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so she had, so I interviewed her also. So she was she was the first person who was not an architect that I
Oh.
interviewed. And then also Kevin Harris of AGS Stainless. They're like a cable rail company and glass rail company. And then Paul Petunia, who is the founder and CEO of Archinect, which is another, which Archinect is worldwide, and Bustler, which is the competition website, he also runs that. So that was our kind of our series for a podcast. So I'm going to be posting Kevin's later on this week.
Fabulous. Well, I'm going to bring this to an end.
Okay.
So relatively short and sweet. So thank you very much for coming on, and we'll put your links in the bio to your podcast as well. And so if you just check out the description, whether you're on Spotify or on YouTube, and if anyone's listening, please like, comment, share, and if you want to get in touch with me, it's Lisa Rains, that's RAYNES, and you can check us out on the prideroadfranchise.co.uk. So thanks very much, Michele, for coming on.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for joining me, Lisa Rains, for Architecture in the Den. If you want to find out about franchising, check out our website, prideroadfranchise.co.uk. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. And do get in touch through your favourite platform if you'd like to be a guest.